Hey beautiful souls, Hannah from Reality Awareness here. Welcome to our Revelations Plus live stream. You might want to grab your cup of coffee, your tea, your glass of wine for this one, because this is something else. A bit like the other one you needed to grab your coffee for as well. This one's kind of along the same lines, right? But it's like taking it to the next level. And everything that I'm wanting to share with you is like, I'm like, wow, I didn't know any more pieces of the puzzle could come together. But at the end of the day, I also knew that because so much has been hidden from us, right? So let me share this and let me be present with you guys. Hey, beautifuls, lovely to have you here. It is Sunday morning in Australia. I was going to go outside, but I don't know, wind picked up and everything. And I was like, oh, this is too important to worry about wind and stuff. Let me just channel it right here, right? Good morning, good morning. All right, so let me bring this up and share this. Hey, Tammy. All right, while I'm sharing this, do you guys want to let me know if you've got any questions? So this live stream is coming in from what I posted the other day, and I'd been sitting with this for like quite a few days and then talking to my inner circle clients about this as well. And I'm like, right, think I'm ready to share this on a live stream. And that's when I posted. So you guys probably have seen that post. And in that post, I also put in there some links to some videos that I had watched, that what I'm about to talk about on this live stream won't really make sense unless you've kind of watched that live stream or those little videos, right? Now, of course, you don't have to like not watch this now if that's the case, but it will make a lot more sense. So if you guys have watched those videos and you've got questions, or you're like, well, that was like next level, Hannah, or whatever, like let me know, like comment in if there's specific things you want me to talk about, speak to, if you've got questions from it, because it was pretty mind-blowing, right? So I'll just finish sharing this. All right, I think this is letting me do it today. Yay, awesome. It is. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna bring the comments up on my screen as well. You watched all 3 of those videos. Oh my God. I know, right? Intense, intense, intense. So Shannon says, hey Joy, hi Kelly, hi everyone. Yes, here we go. That's right, Danny. I know, right? When I was like talking to you, I'm like, I think I'm ready to do a live stream now, because I'm like, this is a really long voice message I'm leaving you. So, okay, time for live stream. It was just like, woof, everything was coming together. All right. Hey Rosina. Okay, so Shannon says, I watched the videos, but I've known about this information for a long time, and now so many people are awakening on deeper levels. It's awesome. Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, like so many of us have known this stuff, and that was, you know, like the other live stream, I was just like, but I've known this stuff, and I went back to sleep to it. Like, what's with that, right? Hey Nicola. So Tammy says, I'm still very interested in the Lemurian connection. Yes, for sure. All right, Shannon says, where are you now? It's windy in Melbourne this morning too. Yeah, it's windy here. So I'm in Queensland still. I'm just an hour north of where I used to live, on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. So just in the hinterland now, which is so pretty and so peaceful. It's beautiful. Super, super grateful. All right, so as you guys are joining, if you've got questions, of course, let me know. I'm not really sure where to start, because there's so much, right? But what I will obviously just intuitively start talking about is that when I, you know, like seeing all that stuff, and like so many times I'm like, why am I only seeing this now? Why am I only seeing this now? Why am I only seeing this now? Like, you know, so Shannon says, Hannah, they tried to get me to go back to sleep, but people like you kept that from happening. Awesome. Awesome. So good to hear. Hey, Tammy. Hey, Sia. Lovely guys to have you here. Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, this is like really important. And you know, so many things I knew and inherently knew I had questioned. And especially in the past 2 years, I was like, but what's outside of earth laws? Like, it's all I could like think about and talk about. And I'm like, yeah, people teaching this stuff, but what's outside of earth laws? I'm like, everyone's like sacred geometry. And I'm like, but what's outside of that? And something that really started shifted things for me in a way too. But you know, like in 2005, John Michel's deck really like drew my attention. Like, and I only ever read his first book, like the what is it? The Secret Flower. The Secret of the Flower of Life, the Ancient Secret of Flower Life. I was talking to another one of my inner circle clients, just like, what's with all these secret teachings? Like, what the fuck? Like, that shit annoys me, right? It's like all this cryptic stuff and all, and I'm like, why? Like, why do that? And it's like, oh, because if anyone's being cryptic with you, they're trying to control you. Like, it's at the end of the day, that's what it is. Like, you know, let's just be transparent. Let's be open. Let's be clear, right? And it's so, you know, that's always irked me, you know, because in a sense, right, in the sense that, you know, like this whole concept is like keeping us asleep. Like someone who is being cryptic with you, right? And I'm going to refer in this video to a narcissist a lot. Please know I don't like labels, but to explain what I'm talking about, people get it, right? Most of us have started to experience the narcissistic stuff. And, you know, I think it was yesterday when I was driving to the markets, but I also, all this driving information, what also came to me was when I wanted to like post saying like, you know, like when somebody wakes up out of a narcissistic relationship, they never go back to sleep. And they have super strong boundaries and they're empowered and they don't go back to the shit. It doesn't mean they have to leave it per se, but they won't take it anymore. They've got really strong boundaries. They stand up for themselves. They know what's truth and what's not. They just don't enter into it anymore. Like, and I was thinking, I was like, well, that's what's happening with the world now. Like we've been under narcissistic, authoritarian rule, patriarchal, if you want to call it that, for a long time. And now we're like, hang on a second. It's the same thing, right? Which is pretty cool in a way. So Kelly says, I watched the videos confused. They were insinuating God and Archangel Michael are not good. If so, where do we get our guidance spiritually from? So many things going on. What do we believe? Yes. Okay. So let me just put notes down here because I've got a whole thing to go through this morning. So, because I'm definitely going to talk about Archangel Michael and God are not good. Where do we get our guidance from? So I'm just going to keep sharing for a minute because I feel like this is important and then I'll go through these questions for sure, okay? So, all right, so where was I? Yeah, so waking up out of narcissistic rule. Now, so Joy says, I take nothing anymore from anybody after healing from a narcissistic relationship. Yeah, it's so cool, right? And it's so interesting, you know, we always say like, what's within us is without, and when we heal within, we heal without. When we shift our personal life, we're shifting for humanity. Like we can really see that as a reflection now. Like if we look at what's been happening in the past few years, especially, like so many people are not, I mean, maybe it's just in my circle, in my field, like maybe that's it. But what I've seen is that so many people are waking up and healing from narcissistic relationships and not doing it anymore. And as we work on that in ourselves, it creates this energetic field around us that connects to other people who are also doing the same, right? I'm talking about that 100 monkey syndrome thing, right? The awakening, it's like everybody's doing it, and what's happening now, it's like got to this like tipping point, which you could feel for a little while in the past few weeks. It's like really strong. They're locking people down and it's like, ooh, that tipping point is coming. Like we can feel it, right? So Danny says, oh my God, the freedom that comes from leaving narcissistic relationship is huge. Yeah, this is massive, right? Becoming aware of my mom being a narcissist was a massive shift for me. Exactly, right? Exactly. So back to John Michel's deck, like I only ever read the the volume 1 book, right? Oh, that's right, we got onto the secret stuff. And I'm like, enough of this secret bullshit. Like, let's be transparent, right? What's wrong with being transparent? Are you scared of that? Like, is that what it is? Because you're not living in alignment with the truth? Is that what it is? Oh, because it can't be fucking anything else now, can it? Like, seriously? Like, this is what it is, yeah? And it's so interesting, the sword, the lion, like, came to me when I was out bush, out back. Like, I found that in a small country town, like, of all places, right? I'm like, just like the wings out in the middle of the road. I'm like, right? So with that, it's really interesting, right? That the lion, you know, and I was like, oh, well, you know, like, that's in alignment with the 12 divine steps to awakening your life purpose, which the symbol is the lion. And then I had a session with an amazing healer about a month ago. So if you're drawn through what I'm about to say, he like connects, I'll get you in contact with him. So send me a message if this resonates with you. He does this soul home connection thing. Like, I don't know, I needed to find out exactly what it's even called, right? But he is amazing in a sense of, he connected me to my soul star home, or it was more than that. I don't even know, right? It was just mind blowing. And anyway, the whole like Lyran stuff came through and I'm like, what? Like, you know, and then he's like, the feelings, and had to explain it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've kind of heard about them before. Like, anyway, so this Lyran being has been hanging around, like waiting for me to like receive him. And I'm like, okay. So anyway, I guess that's why there's all these revelations plus coming in, right? But the point I'm sharing about that with the lion is it's so interesting that the Lyran energy is really strong, the Lemurians, and maybe it's just for me. I'm like, I don't know, maybe this is just for me. But at the same time, being woken up to a lot of things is like another level of spiritual awakening, or it's taking it deeper. Right? Now, remember not long ago, I was also talking about discernment in the spiritual realms and like who are you actually really talking to, and how in 2006, I had a really rude awakening about who I was actually talking to in the spirit realm, and it knocked me for 6. Like, I wanted to throw all the spiritual stuff away. Like, it was a big lesson back in 2006 of like really discerning who I'm talking to in the spirit world, what's going on. And so fast forward to now, I'd always heard over the years since 2005, 2006, you know, I've heard about the Emerald Tablet. Now, back then, when I first read it, I think it was in Drundelo's book, I even read it, and I was like, oh, I need to read that. And I just never ordered the book. I never chased it out. Like, it never really happened. And I was just like, oh, you know, I'll just kind of let it go. And anyway, it kept over the years. I'm like, oh, the Emerald Tablet, I should order that and read it. And I just hadn't, right? In 2018, I think it was in a meditation or something, it was like, now it's time to read the Emerald Tablet. And I'm like, okay, it's time, right? Now, this book, there's so many different versions of it, okay, is super thin, okay? The text is pretty big print, and it's taken me 2 years to read it, and I haven't finished. Now, it talks in here. It doesn't say this, it's like, it's cryptic, read between the lines and the student will understand and blah, blah, blah. And maybe it is doing its thing. Maybe this is the wake up. I don't know, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is with this cryptic shit, for God's sake, right? Like, goodness me, this is driving me up the wall, this cryptic shit. Oh, that's what I was talking about, the line. Because the 12 divine steps to the awakening your life purpose, the first step, the first principle is honesty. Honesty, living in alignment, your truth, integrity. Like, when you want really crystal clear intuition, do not lie. Not even little white lies. Don't. It's like it puts a blanket over your aura. It clouds you. You want crystal clear everything. You want your life to work. Honesty and integrity in everything you do. If you're doing something you know it's out of alignment, you're going to create this like ripple in your field, and then it creates something that attracts all this darkness stuff, right? Could talk about that. By the way, we're doing the 12 divine steps to awakening your life purpose for free next year, right? Because it came through again about, I don't know, a month or 2 ago. It was like, ooh, I can feel the 12 divine steps happening. Now, we did that in 2018. Every month we go through 12 steps, right? To awakening your purpose. So I'm getting sidetracked. So back to the Emerald Tablet. Now, when I've been reading this, like it is really big, right? And this is all based on the Hermetic teachings. Now, I've always deeply resonated with this. I'm like, yes, like this is what our earth is made up of, right? Now, it's taken me so long to get through it, and I feel like it's so deep that I do read a paragraph and I find myself 10 times reading the same paragraph and then have to put it down. Hence 2 years and I'm only this far through, right? Now, maybe it's doing its job and maybe I am reading between the lines more than I realize. However, the stuff around, you know, what I saw in those videos, which is so interesting because as you say, Shannon, this stuff has been information for ages, right? It's definitely been, you know, out there. And I've heard bits and pieces and I've like brushed it off, you know, or gone back to sleep, whatever it is. And the whole piece around, so it's Thoth, I always call him Thoth, Thoth. You know, when she was saying this stuff, well, let me grab the other book because I was like, oh, this is so interesting to me. Hang on. I was like, no, I don't need this book. So this piece, right? So from the videos, right? This is from the videos now because I was like putting all these pieces of the puzzle together. I'm like, oh my goodness. So she kept saying, you know, like, who is Lucifer? Who is actually Lucifer? You know, and I'm like, okay, say the name, say the name. Like, and she was saying that Thoth, like Thoth, is actually Lucifer. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes complete sense to me. It was just like everything, like, put all the pieces of the puzzle together, right? Now, when we are being shattered out of a reality that has been our anchor for all of our time, it's confronting, to say the least. Now, I was crying a lot during watching those videos. I think it was because I was touching on such truth resonance and the whole thing around, like, you know, okay, so many pieces here. I know I feel like I'm jumping, but the point, you know, I know you guys will stay with me with this, right? So, oh my God, this is not, this is not a good diagram. I knew I should have printed it out. So you know when we're talking about the earth on its axis. So here's earth on its axis, right? This is such a, you know, beautiful, really important diagram. And then they were saying the earth is like actually being moved, like our whole solar system, like with what they did in like the Big Bang of like completely shifting the energetic vortex, I don't know, crystalline, whatever, off. Like everything is, it's almost like everything's just being pulled off. Like this is the true alignment and everything, our whole earth, our whole solar system, us, are being pulled off. Now, you know the piece where I said here around the real reason we have had past lives and have had so many torturous ones that we remember. So every past life we do is like fucking traumatic and we're like, oh my God, like, okay, let's heal from this, right? And you know, for a couple of years now, I've been saying so many of us have been doing past life work and healing all the shit and healing all the trauma, because I'm a big believer that anything can be healed. Like I fully believe that if the person's willing to do the work, anything can be healed, right? Now, all those past lives, probably for the past 12 months, I'm like, but why have we had so many past lives? Why is there this thing where we're coming back? I'm like, but what's the fucking purpose, right? Like, ultimately, like, why? Like, oh yeah, so we can like heal this and shift to a higher frequency and blah, blah, blah. When they said, like, okay, so this is, you know, straight off the video as well, because the whole thing with those videos and, you know, and even last week when I was watching other stuff, I was like, I don't know that I'm supposed to teach this stuff anymore. I don't know that I'm supposed to teach what I'm supposed to teach. Like, I know I'm supposed to teach with the throat. Coming up is all about the shadow. It's all about integrating the light and the darkness. It's all about that. And then the heart, consciousness, like all the chakras. I'm like, I don't know that I'm supposed to teach this stuff. Like, I've been in a big process of just like, oh, hang on a second, like so much is being shown to me. I don't know anymore, right? Now, in that, of course, then they show me the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I'm like, oh, like insane, right? Answering all my questions. So that thing around, you know, like with them, whatever they did in the, you know, vortex of whatever that is out there in our galaxies and beyond our galaxy system. Like, this is massive systems we're talking about, and the black holes and everything. And those black holes is like a rip in time or a rip in aura. Like, you know that film that Oprah brought out a couple of years ago, a rip in time or something. It was something like that, and it's about literally the tear in the aura of reality. Like, you know, and I'm like, because with all the stuff that's been surfacing in the past, you know, few months, everyone's like talking about, I'm like, but what about Oprah's movie? Like, it was almost like, you know, like, I understand what she was saying with that about, you know, like the one she directed, you know, and how she was saying, you know, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's literally A Wrinkle in Time. Thank you. It's literally like the big black negative vortex, basically, where people get lost and unconscious and sucked in and never come back. Like, and it's literally like, you know, a day normal reality, and literally this crack opens and it goes into the vortex of space and out there. Like, you know, and I've been questioning that because, you know, I'm like, because I watched it on the plane years ago coming back from New Zealand, and it really, I was just like, whoa, but now I see it on a different level. I'm like, well, this is what it is. So with that, and them sucking these parasites, right? These parasites feeding off our energy. Now, when we look at a narcissist in our everyday relationship, what that is somebody not being able to, like somebody trying to control someone, and somebody not connecting to source directly themselves. Now, it's interesting, we're about to start the crystalline chakra journey. Where do we start? At the crown. What does the crown do? The crown is where we connect directly to source. If we don't, we're feeding off each other. Like two people like feeding off each other, and we're fighting, and as narcissists, and we're just stuck in this like we're stuck in this little vortex of our own little reality, and we're not connecting to the true source. Right? Now, when we look at that in relation to literally what on a bigger scale, the macrocosm, the microcosm, the macrocosm, like when we just expand that out from us going like this to what the bad ETs, the reptilians, like the parasitic, darker, low vibration beings have opened that dark portal and pulled Earth in, so that they're constantly feeding off us, like, you know, rather than them choosing to be in the light and connecting to full source and in complete expansion, they've pulled us over and are leeching off us, right? Now, you might be hearing this or watching those videos and you're like, well, what's the fucking point? Like, it's almost like, well, this is beyond us. This is too big for us little humans here to fix, right? Now, we all feel that at some point. We feel that powerlessness. We feel that sense of, well, what the fuck do we do? If this is a war beyond this galactic laws, like, this is nothing to do with us, right? Like, how are we supposed to come out of this one, right? Now, I was even thinking about it, having a shower, like getting ready, well, the shower realizations. But the piece is, I was like, but how do we, you know, like, okay. So leeches, yeah, leeches. Now, you know how I keep saying, like, so like we're feeding off each other and blah, blah. And when we look at the bigger scale, it's like, well, they're feeding off our galaxy system or whatever, right? Now, in that sense, I was like, so how do we fix this? Because it's beyond us. So even if we killed all the leeches, even if we killed all the bad people on the planet, right? Which I don't really understand this piece, so bear with me. But this is my intuitive ponderings. So if Q is who they really say they are, and let's say by miracle, they fix the world. They take over and kill all the bad reptilians and whatever. Yeah? Let's say they do that. Yes, we've conquered all the bad people. Like, now we're the heroes and we're the ones. There's always one left. There's always a hybrid. There's always still a leech in a way. And so the cycle continues to perpetuate. That's what came to me. I'm like, it doesn't feel right. And for months, when everyone's like, Trump's going to save us. And hey, maybe he is. Maybe I am wrong. I'm not saying that he's not doing a good job. I'm not saying that he is. I'm not saying he isn't. Like, all I'm saying, and it's exactly what I've said from the very start about it, I'm like, it's just another system trying to overtake a system. At the end of the day, it's the same vibrational energy. Why? Because they're trying to take over another system. Now, it's kind of like, oh, well, there goes all the hope again, Hannah. So what the hell do we do? Right? It's like, well, what do we do now? And this is the same answer that I've been saying since 2005, and what our purpose is to awaken our own consciousness and connect back to the true source. And that shifts us all. If we're in alignment, everybody's in alignment. Like, we all shift, right? Now, it might seem when we're doing this work, I'm like, but it's not enough, right? Because all the, you know, like human trafficking and everything, like, that's been going on for years, but that's not going to stop, sadly enough. Like, I saw one of my inner circle clients sent me this like news report. It was like 39 people have been saved, like 39 children are being saved. And I'm like, first thing I read, I was like, 39? That's it. And then I kept reading and my client's like, only another 5 million to go. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I freaking thought. Sorry anyway, right? I know there's people out there doing good things in the world. I'm not bagging them out, right? I'm talking bigger picture scale, because at the end of the day, when we're all just doing these little things, like, you know, and we're not connecting into the true source, like we can be doing all the physical things in the world, but if we're not connecting back to the true source, it's almost like there's no point. Because this is bigger than us. This is beyond our world. This is outside of our earth laws, which I've been asking the freaking damn question. Now, in 2018, mid-2018, that's when I got the message to read this. This is explaining all the earth laws. And ever since I started reading this book, I've been questioning, but what's outside the earth laws, right? This is like talking about polarity. This is talking about density. This is talking about, you know, like the all. This is talking about, you know, like the mind. Like, it's talking about the earth laws. And this is what our laws, this is what our earth is made up of, right? Now, science will confirm that. Science will do this. Like, all these things. Sacred geometry will confirm that. Sacred geometry is the same aspects of nature and stuff. Now, all of this new revelations has come because on my last live stream, I was like, but something even feels off about the Fibonacci sequence, right? Now, since then, I've been shown that that is truth, and someone sent me a video, thank goodness, thank you, because I'd said that on live stream, and they showed me the Fibonacci sequence, and this is different. I should have printed out the other one, but if you've seen on that page that I showed you guys, this is the true, and it's called the crystalline, I don't know, it's called the crystalline something, right? It's crystal. Now, I only found this site that I shared those videos like a week ago or so, a week and a half ago, 10 days ago. And for months, right, since the start of the year, I've been getting the message about when we do the chakra journey this year, it's the crystalline chakra journey. It's not just the chakra journey, it's the crystalline activation. And I was like, okay, if you guys have done my free third eye crystalline activation, you're gonna get a taste of it. I'm going to share all the details of that coming up soon. But now I understand why I've been shown to do the crystalline activation journey, because of all of this coming to light. Now, what is this different to like the normal, you know, Fibonacci and all the other different sacred geometry? It's just a simple, like, they've changed up the numbers. They've changed the mathematics of it, which changes the entire friggin' dimensional structure of reality. And I'm like, so am I supposed to teach this stuff? Because this doesn't seem right anymore, because angels and stuff, right? And so, because as you say, Kelly, you're like, how do we connect to true source? I thought I was when I was connecting to God's source and the angels. And I was like, yeah, so did I, right? And this is where I've been delving in this past like week. So I've been a bit quiet on social media because I'm like, I don't know that I'm supposed to teach this anymore. And I'm like, have I done something wrong? Because I've been teaching about the angels and blah, 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 blah. And I'm about to teach, coming up very soon, in the throat chakra, I don't even know what I'm going to call it properly yet, like the shadow of the archangels. It's literally like the light and the dark aspects of the archangels, right? Now, that for me has been so alive for a long time, and I've been really looking forward to getting there and teaching that to people. Now, it's a big consciousness shift to teach the light and the dark integration of both, of each archangel, right? There's extremes. Now, the extremes of the archangels, maybe I should have grabbed that book, but maybe I will show you guys something else as well when I go and get the book. It seems important. So you know how I've talked about Archangel Metatron? And even Archangel Metatron came through really strongly, right? Came through in December. I shared it in my private trust intuition group. And then it came through and it's like, here's this dodecahedron. And of course, I see in all those videos, I'm like, the Metatronic is the dark, you know, thing. And I'm like, whoa, what have I been teaching? Like, do you know what I mean? And I've been freaking questioning everything. And that's why I'm just like, well, have I been doing the wrong thing? What have I been doing? Right? And then I get shown all this other stuff. Now, the other piece, I'm just sharing bits as they come to me, right? Because there's no really order, but please bear with me. I know you can stay with me. It seems like I'm jumping, right? So in January 2020, when I was having a float, doing my own self-care, everybody leave me alone, I'm resourcing myself. That's when the draconian being came through and gave me the prediction, the world prediction about everything that's going on this year in 2020. That was in January, right? And I'd never met this draconian being. Actually, that's a lie. He came through when I first held Reconfiguring Energetic Codes in just like April, May 2019, which is about almost a year since I started reading this. Now, that draconian being I'd never seen before then. Then he came through again in 2020 in January and told me that world prediction. I was so nervous. I don't do predictions, right? I've been so anti it for so long because psychics have given us a bad rep for so long by predicting the future and telling people it's bad and they're going to die or whatever the story is and not supporting them. And so we've had this bad rep. Now, the other thing about that, I've come online to like be teaching like all of, you know, this stuff to wipe us from that bad name of psychics. Now I understand on a bigger picture that all the people, all the hierarchy, elites, whatever you want to call them, are actually the freaking bad psychics that have kept us trapped and actually pointed the finger at us and scapegoated us to be the bad psychics when actually people like us that are connected to the earth, that are the original beings of our earth and, you know, from our genetic parents, right? That is who we are, and they've scapegoated us on a big picture scale to be the freaking bad ones of society. So, you know, that society turns, I guess, like, blah. I'm like, oh, now I understand my purpose more about why I was so passionate. Like if you watch all my very first live streams, right? All my first videos from when I came online, the first thing I say, I'm like, psychic readings, but I do not tell the future, blah, 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 because when nothing is set in stone. And now I'm like, oh, that's why we've got a bad rep, because they're scapegoating us. The royal elites, all those people, they're scapegoating us. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, whoa, fire. And then I see all these other things like one after the other. I'm like, mind expansion. And what happens, right? Kelly, you asked, how do we know if we're connecting to the true source? Okay. How do you know if you're connecting to the true source? Because you are in expansion. Anything else that contracts you, that pulls you down, that makes you feel shit, that makes you feel all those lower emotions is the wrong source, right? Now, I've been also questioning this because I'm like, but what about grief? What about blah, 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 blah? And I still fully believe, because I've been processing all of this, and that's why I'm now ready to talk about the live stream, is that, okay, as we journey through awakening. Now, I feel like that's shifting faster and faster, and we don't have to delve into as much trauma. But for a very first person who's coming to this, I do feel there is a place where we need to clear out the trauma of what they've experienced unconsciously for not just this lifetime, but eons of time. And they have trapped us in this vortex of earth, so we cannot leave. So we can't expand into expansion and ascend. Like, that's what they've done to the energy vortex of the grids of the earth, right? Now, I've known all this stuff. It's in Drunvlo's book too, about what they did to Lemuria and blew it all up and all this other stuff, right? Today, they are blowing up things around the earth of those earth grids, right? So we don't expand, so we don't ascend. And I'm like, oh my God, this is making so much sense, right? Oh my gosh, okay. All right, lots of things coming through. yeah, this is called the Emerald Tablet, okay? There's lots of different versions of it. The Emerald Tablet of Hermes and the Kabbalion, they're like the same sort of thing. Two classic books on the Hermetic philosophy, right? Because they say that the Emerald Tablet was like, you know, scribed by Thoth, that he, you know, and in those videos I just watched, he wasn't ever supposed to write it down. It was not supposed to be written. He was supposed to verbally translate it to people, right? Hence, this now being inscriptured as gospel, because what happened? They, you know, like wrote all the books and blah, blah. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So Danny says, I believe Earth is 23 degrees out of its original axis. Yes, don't quote me to be in alignment with the galaxy system, so it has to move to get back into alignment. Yes, and this is where I feel like we come in, because what I resonated with on those videos, and I was saying, you know, and I shared another one with my inner circle client last night, it was like, you know how most of us have had this dragon thing lately? Like maybe the past 12 months, 18 months, maybe 2 years, the dragons have been really strong. Right? We've connected with our dragon. We feel super connected to our dragon. Like it's, and I always say the dragon connects us to our heart. When we awaken to our dragon, we awaken to our heart. Now, and that's in the crown chakra consciousness, because the crown, when we activate the crown, the heart is automatically activated. What have they been doing for eons of time? They've been locking us down so we don't connect to source, which is the first portal, which is why I'm always so passionate about starting from the crown chakra coming down, not from base earth density and coming up, right? Because that was another thing I questioned. I was like, oh, am I supposed to still teach the chakras coming down because we're like descending, we're not ascending? And I'm like, no, people need that connection. If they don't have that connection, they get stuck in the density and stuck in the unconsciousness rather than connecting to source and bringing source light through the consciousness of all. Like, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I still really resonate with this. And then the other piece about it, right? Okay, so back to Danny's question. So Danny says, has to move back to get back to alignment, which will cause who knows what exactly, right? Does this block the black hole to leeches? I do believe, as you say, we all have to live in high vibration, which is harmonious connections. She said, I read the Emerald Tablets, very secretive and repetitive. We have been stuck in repetitive cycles for eons. Exactly why? So we repeat the same emotions. So we repeat the same vibrations. Why? Because that's the density that they feed off, right? Now, so I've trusted I've been tapping into the right source, but I don't know. This is complete trust intuition. Next level trust intuition. This is advanced trust intuition. The Rapid Ascension Awakening is deep, like a full course on each chakra, right? I'm still in creation of them. We're at the ears at the moment, about to go into the throat. Now, this is the advanced training of trust intuition, yeah, for the exact reason. Okay. I'm confused in regards to what is actually source now. Exactly. I've trusted, I've been tapping into the right source, but I don't know. This is complete trust intuition. We've been killed over and over, losing more magic and knowledge with each death, the witch hunt, etc. Yes, exactly right. So, okay, and so Tammy says, don't you teach asking for 100% light so we connect with the highest possible vibration? Yes. Yes, that is the answer, right? And if you are confused or it feels off or something doesn't feel right, it's truth. Trust yourself. Disconnect from it. Connect to the highest source and vibration of light. Now, as we go through the crystalline journey, it's going to awaken the crystalline matrix within your system. If you, like I said, if you've done that third eye crystalline activation that I've had for free for quite some time now, I think that came through in like October last, 2019 it was. And that was the first start of it. And then we're going through the entire crystalline journey, right? So that's, you know, like, how do I connect to true source? So here's the thing, right? I feel like I need to draw this. Let me grab a piece of paper because I feel like this is important to visually see. Always got my textures handy for this reason, not just on live stream. Okay, so, all right, so I'm just gonna try and draw the, I almost like printed off the thing. I don't know, right? So this is Earth. I don't know that this is not a, like, you know, correct, you know, justification of whatever that word is, description, whatever. Okay, so this is the galaxy stuff. And then we've got, I don't know, this bit. And then over here is actually kind of where we're supposed to be. So from my understanding of it, don't quote me on it, okay? So this is the galaxy, okay? This is like two things. So right now in the galaxy, out or beyond galaxies, it's massive, right? I can't even comprehend it. Our Earth is over here and they've currently looped us in. So they've like, oh, I probably should have drawn that differently. So this is the true Earth's axis, right? And then the other piece to it is that there's a whole, like, you know, the tree of life, right? There's a whole system and they've actually created the wrong tree of life, like as well. Like all the spiritual stuff we know is designed to keep us trapped. Like they changed it, right? I'm so angry about it. Anyway, it makes total sense to me. So basically, like this should be off a bit, right? So basically our Earth as we know it today is over here on this different Earth axis. Remember on the live stream the other day, I was talking about, someone asked me, Hannah, when you do the internal compass, north, south, east, west, and it's, you know, like, does north have to be the proper north? And I'm like, well, no, it's where your north is. And that's when I started saying, for so long, for me, north is actually where the sun comes up. It's actually east. And at my old place and at this place, I do it too. And I'm like, it's north. Like, I just naturally feel that, right? And I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, that's right. No, actually, it's north is that way. And for a while now, a lot of us have also been saying there's more than one north and north has not felt north. And now we know why, right? Because they've flicked it off the true north, basically, right? Now, even that, okay, because even with like the Fibonacci sequence and stuff, when I was like, but that feels off, you know, and then I kind of looked at a couple of flowers and I'm like, but flowers are right? Like the flowers and, you know, the beautiful patterns in the flowers and stuff. And then as I've been researching more, I'm like, I don't know, in those videos, they actually said nature is not supposed to die. We are not supposed to die. We are not supposed to eat. Like we are constant expansion. When a tree eventually dies, nature eventually dies. And I'm like, oh my God, why? Why does that happen? Because we're over here. We're supposed to be over here. It's like, well, what do we freaking do about that? Because I was like, hey, let's connect to nature. And we connect. It's like, no, like that's not even right. So I felt like this whole almost disconnection in a way. I was just like, but nothing's right. So we're not right either. Like from our true nature of complete expansion, of complete, like the whole thing. And I'm like, oh. So I've been sitting with this and I'm like, so what do we do? Like even nature's off. I feel sad for nature as well, you know, like why did they do this? But when we look at parasites, when we look at leeches, when we look at all of the dark stuff, it's like, well, we know, right? Now, Tammy says, north is always in front of me no matter the direction I'm facing. Now, when you go through that stuff, right, it's deep. So let me just check this. So will you post a link for the crystalline meditation you keep mentioning? Yes, yeah, I'm getting it already. You'll see it coming over the next few days for sure. So Danny says, yes, 100% light with the highest good for humanity in the universe galaxy. Yes, yes. Keep meditating, mentioning, oh, what's the book? Yes, and all the new age stuff. Exactly, right? Exactly. So I always get my directions incorrect. So the thing that really kind of threw me a bit, because this is the thing, right? And I've been like, but I have had such an affinity and a strong connection to the archangels for ages. So another piece of this, right? They say, where did this come from? How did this happen? Blah, blah, blah on the videos, right? Now, like I said, I'm not taking everything on those videos or that page for gospel, because there's a couple of things like the secret teachings of it. I'm like, well, so this secret shit. So there's a couple of things I'm like, but there's some really pieces of gold that I've pulled out of it too. What do we always say? Take what resonates and leave the rest. Yeah, always. From anyone you're hearing anything from, okay? Trust intuition as always. Now, because the Archangel Michael stuff and the Lucifer stuff and the toast stuff. Like I've been reading this. Like I wanted to burn this book when I first heard this stuff. And I took it out of my bedroom and I was like, I almost burnt it. But I didn't. I didn't feel to burn it as much as I wanted to. And I sat with it and now I'm understanding deeper. And I'm like, so even, okay, let me talk about Archangel Michael stuff. So on the thing, and they're saying, so it was like, how did they get here or whatever? So basically, they ripped a hole in reality, galaxy reality, whatever, right? I don't know how they did it, through changing whatever. And it makes you wonder, right? It makes you wonder why they did that in the first place. Why did the reptilians, why did those blah, blah, blah do that in the first place? Why? Yeah? And my sense about that is because they can't live without the light. They can't live without source, and eventually they're going to come. Now, the other thing about this, guys, is so many, in all those videos and everything, and all the history, right? They're like, oh, the fallen beings from the Seraphim, and the fallen beings from, it wasn't Pleiades, but you know, whatever the names are, the fallen beings from blah, 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 blah. They all joined the dark forces, the fallen beings from blah, 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 blah. What happens when we fall? There's only one way back up. Why did this originally happen? Because they can't survive without the light. Now they think they have to steal it. Why? Because they don't have the courage to step into the true authenticity of where we originated from. All of us, the light and the dark. Now, I was questioning this because I'm like, reptilian, I'm like, I got that meditation like for the ear chakra consciousness to reconnect our reptilian brain. And again, I was like, everything that I've been teaching, is it correct? Because what the fuck, right? And I've been like fully processing all this. Now, what came to me after a couple of days of me just going, oh, what have I done, right? The reptilian brain, it made sense, right? Because if the dragons are the reconnection to the heart, and they originally gave all the codes, right? The Sophia, the divine mother, gave the codes to the dragon to look after while she fell and came to be with her children to give us a choice to ascend, apparently. Okay? Not taking everything as gospel. Well, this kind of resonates with me. The dragon has been chasing her to give them back to her, for her to take her place in all the galaxies, because that's what she does. She oversees it all or something, right? Something like that. And I'm like, well, that makes sense with the dragons. Now, with the reptilians, a dragon is a reptile. So it's like, yeah, right? However, when we look at what they have done in manipulating DNA and manipulating our bodies and all the things they've done over eons of time, right, to keep us in this trapped vortex, they disconnected. And this is the original message that I got about that reconnecting, you know, the reconnecting is the ear chakra meditation. I'll put that out for you guys too, right? Reconnecting the reptilian brain, right, of the initial structure that comes up, our kundalini that comes into our brain. It's reconnecting that because they have disconnected that to keep us unconscious. Right? So when we can reconnect the truth of our reptilian brain, which is reconnecting parts that they have destroyed and dismantled and manipulated and mutated, right? When we can reconnect us back to the truth, and this is like, it's interesting, the Monday meditation that I just held last week, it was about reconnecting back to herself. They've got enough of our energy over the past few months. Now I'm understanding that deeper, right? You know what we're doing this week? I've already been shown. Anyway, you'll see tomorrow. So back to where, you know, the archangel stuff, right? So apparently, Archangel Michael, and, you know, it's like, where do they come from? So, you know, this is where we're supposed to be, so to speak, and they've flicked us over because they come from a neighboring galaxy or something called Wisadak. I don't know how to pronounce it. Genetically modified, exactly, right? So Wisadak over here, it's a different, it's almost like a different parallel or something. I don't really know how to describe it right now. When I heard that name, and I'm like, I've heard that name before. That name is really familiar to me. I haven't read it in a text. I haven't done, I've heard that name. It's so damn familiar to me. So I've been like, okay, well, I'm questioning the archangels, like all the teachings. Like the archangels, since day dot of my awakening, they were the ones that have been there. Now, after going through my dude process and having that rude awakening in 2006, of like, not all spirit's good, right? Ever since that moment, I have asked for 100% light to come through. Now, I'm still fully trusting that because I deeply know when there's someone around that's not of the highest light. Like, it's an inherent knowing, yeah? Now, what's also interesting is with that realization that actually say, I don't know if all the archangels are from there. They only talk about Archangel Michael now. I don't know. I need to do more research. I need more information. Like, because I'm even like, where do these people get this information from? How did they get this information? Like, where is this coming from? I almost posted the other day, question everything. Right? Because yeah, I'm getting shown all this information, but there's some things I don't resonate with still. Why? Because my discernment factor is so freaking switched on and my radar for bullshit is so switched on. I'm like, yeah, yes, there's lots of resonance and I don't know about that bit and stuff, right? Now, with the Archangel Michael, I'm just going to use Archangel Michael because where did the other ones come from? I don't know. With that being from Westerdack on this outside thing, right? Now, you know how I said before, I'm like, well, why did they even do it in the first place? And my answer was because they, the dark needs the light to survive. Like, in a way, like, do you know what I mean? Like, no life can be sustained completely in a collapsed, you know, place. Like, not even reptiles. Like, they need the sun, for fuck's sake, to warm up. Like, it's a thing, isn't it? Like, it's why they're constantly reaching out, pulling on us, because they cannot survive without us. Meaning they cannot survive without source, but they're too scared to connect to source. So they're leeching off everybody else. And this is what happens with narcissists. They're too scared to confront their own selves. Right, in a way, okay? Like getting that thing. So when I was deeply questioning, obviously, the archangels, and I'm like, but I'm about to teach the dark and the light. Like, what is with that? You know, and all my deep connections with the archangels around, you know, like I felt so strongly that they've guided so much of my work and just like not all of them, not all the time, but they've definitely helped my abilities and, you know, all that stuff. Now, what's been coming to me, right, is when I was showing on this site about, you know, this is the tree of life, right? And this is the true crystalline thing. So the Fibonacci, there's a thing I probably should have printed out, but the Fibonacci actually is a couple of degrees in or something. Like it's off, right? And when we look at the tree of life, I think it's in here somewhere. So when we look at the tree of life, they've actually also altered the tree of life, right? I can find it here. So this is the tree of life. This is the true tree of life, okay? Which is this, ultimately. Now, I haven't seen it in this shape before. I've only seen it in this shape, which is the same shape. It's just, this is a little bit closed in. Like, do you know what I mean? But it's the tree of life. Now, when we look at the other aspect of it, now I printed something else out not long ago. Let me grab it. Yeah, get this stuff ready, did I got it ready and I didn't because I didn't really know how I was going to start or what I was going to talk about. Well, I knew I was going to talk about, but the order. So anyway, this came up in my feed a little while ago, and I was like, this really drew my attention. And again, I wanted to burn it. Big, you know, and I was like, it's probably about 2 months ago, this came up in my feed, and I'm like, okay. I didn't really understand it, but all the information on it, I was like, I need this for some reason, but I wanted to burn it after everything kept unraveling, but I kept it because it seemed important. So this one, now, whoever made this document, I don't know, but it is gold in understanding the dark ages. So even up the top here, it's almost like I don't know if it comes down or what it does, yeah, all the way down to 1776, but this starts with the Great Flood and the Pharaohs and the kings of Babylon, the Roman Empire, the Vatican, the Knights of Templar, the Masons, like Illuminati, like comes all the way down, right? Now, I wanted to burn it because it's all the dark stuff, right? I didn't really understand it, but I knew it was important for me to keep. Now, when I was obviously seeing all this stuff that I'm now talking to you guys about, And they're saying they even changed the tree of life of the sacred geometry. Now you can see very clearly they've cut out like that top one there, cut out this, yeah? And they've like brought it down more. Like they've changed it. They've changed the freaking structure of it, right? And I'm just like, now when I started seeing all this, and I came across this one. Like I said, I've seen this many times, right? I've seen this many times in the Liquid Crystal book, yeah? But I saw this. And do you know what this reminded me of? Let me show you. And let me show you these other revelations. So, let me check the date. Because this, like I've been working with the Archangel since 2005, right? So, on the 31st of, is that the 7th or the 3rd? On the 31st of the 7th, 2013, this is what I channeled. Check it out. That is I don't channel archangels. I don't channel stuff very often, right? I just don't. But that came through me. Now that is Archangel Raziel. Yeah, Archangel Raziel. Now, if you look at the bottom, like see here, it looks like a person, right? Can you guys see that? You can see, it almost looks like a goddess, sleeping in a way. Oh my goodness. Now, these things that I've written on there, it says, I am connected to the source in a profound way. It says, I am the essence. Oh, I think I might be back to front for you guys. I'm not sure. I am the essence of the source, therefore I am. I am the divine power. What does it say? This is the essence of who you are. And in this, all the colors of the rainbows, they are all part of the essence. They are all part of the essence. They are the essence. It's Archangel Raziel. I don't channel stuff like this very often, right? I just don't. But for whatever reason, in whatever meditation I did, he came through. Now, let me grab this book and let's go back. And because I was questioning everything, and when I actually, sat, like going through all this stuff, and I'm like, the tree of life, and I'm like, okay, what about the archangels? Such a strong affinity with them. And what I just showed you, right, of what I channeled that in 2013 is the same shape as that, right? Because the middle bit is like here where I've drawn that, those points of the crystal. Now I was about to get that crystal tattooed on my back and I held off because there's all these signs and stuff, and I was like, I'm just gonna wait for my back tattoo. And then all this information's come to me and I'm like, okay, I still would have been happy with that crystal, but I didn't know this aspect of it, right? And so for me, it's like, okay, I feel like, yes, that is truth for me, that I have been connecting to the right source. Like I feel that, right? Now, it's not to say that I've never been taken over by entities or darkness, because we all do at times, right? And when we are in a negative spiral of emotion and negative, that's where they suck more and they pull us down. When we're feeling worse, we usually feel worse, right? And that's when negative entities and stuff come in. And I've always said that. I'm like, if you're not in your body, who is, right? So this is why taking care of ourselves, constantly clearing our energy, doing the things to keep our vibration high are so important, right? So let me check these comments. So Tammy says, I've always questioned everything. I feel the same after a day of processing. I still feel comfortable calling on Archangel Michael and Metatron of 100% light. Yes, of 100% light. I feel the same too. And I'm going to give you the big whoa piece about why. That is for me anyway. So Danny says, whatever has happened in the past, I think this is an important piece as to why I went through a huge process of forgiveness for Atlantis and a whole range of other beings. Yeah. Right? Because that's the thing I've been questioning too. I'm like, well, why did that draconian being come to me? I'm like, why, what's with that? I'm like, because the stuff that they told me is truth, is real. And you know how I kept saying the fallen seraphim and the fallen beings and this from this race, there was this fallen being and this fallen being. And then, And I'm like, yeah, and what happens to people who fall? They freaking wake up. What happens to people who go out of alignment with their life purpose? After a while, it doesn't feel good and they cannot not wake up. You cannot stop consciousness awakening. Like, it's the thing, right? And this is the thing. It might take a long time, but it might not. Because you know how they say we've been in the dark ages. Yeah, we've gone unconscious, but now we're becoming conscious again. Like, there's only one way up, and I feel personally that there are a lot of beings from the dark that are coming to people like myself, like with that draconian being, because I've been questioning, and I was like, well, I don't know, like, you know, but I'm like, but everything they said was truth. Like, you know, if we look at what's happened in the world, I'm like, this all happened, you know, like, anyway, and the piece about that is I'm like, well, that would make sense, because if there's some people who do the dark, bad stuff, right, that have been pulled in from the light, and they go unconscious and they join the crowd to feel connected or home or whatever it is, right? And then eventually their moral internal compass cannot cope with being covered anymore, and they start to go, well, this doesn't feel good anymore, but they have to like stay in the group, like, you know. And that's where I feel like a lot of the beings are coming to people like us and giving us these bits of information to help, and then go back because they don't like it anymore. But that's the only way out of guilt that they can almost make up for what they're doing or what they've done. Does that make sense? Like, that's the sense that I've been getting after the past few days of going into all of this. So Danny says, so yes. So Hector says, at this moment of time into Aquarius era, not sure if it's Neptune energy, but what it means is all secrets will be revealed. There we go. So it makes sense that all of this is coming out. Exactly, right? Yeah, that's why I'm like, hey, enough of the damn secrets. Like, we're done, right? Enough. So Tammy says, I wonder if this is why Doreen Virtue retracted her teachings. Excuse me. You know, it's so interesting that also has been coming to me. I was like, oh, well, this makes sense why Doreen, had all these realizations, clearing some sort of energy here from the beings. How interesting. Okay. And this is what we do. Because from those videos that I watched, and this resonates with me, right? And this might seem egotistic or whatever. We are like the most powerful beings. Humans are. Like, yes, we've been mutilated and transformed over time, but ultimately, why have they done that? Because we're the most powerful race. Now, it's not like we're the most powerful. It's just literally like we're the closest to source is what they said. So it's almost like, you know, like this is the one that they mutilated, right? On the tree of life. So we're like the closest to source. Yeah, we're the closest to source. So when you really consider that, when you are faced with a level of darkness, all you need to do is connect to your source. You know, I've always said to people, there's a power pole, like in the solar plexus light field yoga, we activate the power pole inside of us. Now, I've always seen it there since 2015, no, it was 2012 when all of that came through, right? And in like, it's you know, and I say it to people with my clients, I'm like, it's literally like, I don't know, it's a few inches in diameter, circumference or whatever, through us, right? Through the center of our body. Like, it's like this beam, may you say, or something. It's like a beam of energy inside of you, a pole, right? Of energy, this vortex of energy inside of you. And it's interesting that when they were talking on this side, on whatever video I was watching, they were saying something, I can't remember exactly, but it was like, you know, like they showed, you know, like humans that have this pole that's, it's not just the torus, it's more than that or something. And it was like this pole, and I'm like, that pole I've always seen and I can feel it inside. And when you activate that within inside you, nothing can knock you from that. Like, when you face a level of darkness, it's like that. And this is why I think for a long time I was like, the darkness doesn't scare me. Like, you know, like, lay the demons at my feet. Like, I am an angel, will make them weep. Like, I'm like, oh, there's so much truth to that. Right? Marianne Williamson always says it's not our dark that we fear, it's our light. Like, all of that, right? So Alisa says, this theory sure gives them a lot of power and making them the higher power. Can you Yes, it does. It makes them the high power. I know what you're saying now, right? Exactly. And keeps us trapped. And this is why, you know, and they're feeding off that. They're feeding off that. And the crown chakra consciousness, when we go through that, it's like when we're not connecting to our own source, we're taking from each other. When we are in full self-service, we know that we are fully supported as we serve everything. And in the expansion spiral, everything is abundant, nothing dies. There's totally like tapping into that different field, right? All right. Okay, so Hector says, maybe we are the most complete beings, combination of all others. That means we can be powerful. Maybe they keep us asleep because maybe with the ego mind of control, they could be controlled. Maybe. Yeah, I guess. And that's what they're trying to do to us, you know, and it's not going to work. Like, it's not going to get to that point, and I can feel that now, okay? Because the piece that I want to finish with, right, isn't source the highest power. Exactly. Yeah, like, and so we're like, the humans are like the next people down, or there was a name for our genetic parents. I can't think what it was called on our, I need to speak to this bit first. So on one of the videos, and they said the original like thing was that they knocked, you know, that planet out, and it threw everything out, and they, you know, killed our genetic parents, and so humans were made from that, right? Now in the Metatronic stuff, or the Metatron stuff or something, they said that Metatron made humans to, oh, it was something, you know, and I was like, oh, and then I was talking with one of my inner circle clients, and I was saying like the Megatron and stuff, and I was like, because what about this Metatron stuff? So let me go into that in a sec. But the thing about our parents and our genetic parents is that why so many of us are black sheep and don't fit into our parents and our family systems, because ultimately that whole longing for home is damn real, right? And people have always said, and it's like, yes, we come from the stars and this is not our true home, and like we're longing for home and blah, blah, blah. But it's much more than that. It's the whole galactic connection of the actual activation of all of these back into proper alignment, rather than what they've done here, like for all that, you know, descending or whatever. So it's really quite interesting when we really look at on a maybe community citizen scale around people who suicide, people who feel alone, depression, disconnected. Like, yeah, they're feeding off all that and doing it, and they've got all their fucking things the way they keep us trapped like that. But on a spiritual level, the longing for the parents and the longing for the connection home is so deep and real on an ancestral soul level. Like, you know, we inherently feel that on a soul level. You know, so many people say to me, you know, if I get a healing session, they're like, your heart, it is like, there's so much, they don't say so much grief, they're like, your heart is sad. And now I know why. It's the original, like, yes, there's so much, but it's that original separation from the truth of who we are. There's so much more to that, but if you haven't watched those videos, please make time to watch them. There was another one as well that I watched. I'll just see if I can put it in the comments right now. It was about half an hour long, this one. The Lucifer Archangel Michael one, yeah, so that's the one I didn't put in the original links. But I'm just going to pop it in there now, just so as I'm talking I don't forget. I did put it in the comments of the thing as well. Oh, did that not work? Okay. Can't see my keyboard. Okay. So, okay, so Tammy says, I got the horrible sense that America is in a battle of the light and the dark. Yeah, it is exactly it, right? So, let me, okay, so, and then Hector says, I feel that's where all humans need to be aligned to source. Otherwise, with one single person knowing its own power and using it for tyranny, it may be used and be the win for bad. Exactly, and that's like the whole Q stuff. I'm like, I've said from the very day dot, I'm like, yeah, but it's just another system overtaking another system. Yeah, they might be doing it for the better and stopping the trafficking and all that shit. At the end of the day, it's still a system overtaking the system. So show me back to the original grid. Now, this might take time. However, when we're working with the light and we're working in the quantum field, it's rapid. Rapid Ascension Awakening. Now my purpose when they first showed me this stuff is like they showed me the human body. Okay, I was meditating. This wasn't what I was asking for. It was in the last month of doing my light worker practitioner training, the master light worker practitioner training, the blue flame. Do you know what's so interesting? When I moved, I'm getting sidetracked, but this is important. This house that I'm in now, the outside of it is painted blue. It's like a baby light color blue, like it's blue, right? And I noticed that. And then at my old house where I've just been living for 8 years that I just moved from, when they removed, like it's all white inside, but when they removed the old air conditioner and put the new one on, the walls inside the house were like blue. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. In 2005, where I was living in Alexander Headlands, this beautiful little unit overlooking the water, I was never moving from there. The inside of the walls of the house were blue. Now, I'm not talking light blue at that house. They were like dark sea blue on the walls, like because you could see the ocean, but it was just this dark blue. Anyone who went to my 2005 house on the hill, my unit on Alexander Headland, would remember those walls, like, and it was so significant. And then I learned that that blue color is like the closest to source. So interesting. Anyway, little sidetrack, but this house I'm in now, I'm like, it's terrible. I was walking around outside the other day because Midnight went missing, but she came back. She's not going outside again for a while. Anyway, I was like, this house is blue. Like, it's blue. Yes, we can deny them permission to use our energy light. 100% should be. That's when I say, like, close the damn portals. Close the portals. Cut the cords. Close the portals. Seal off your energy. Like, you know, like, not seal off your energy in a, like, isolating way. Like, seal up the holes from the inside out. Because when, and this is what they showed me with the purpose, and this is my purpose, and this is why I'm so passionate about teaching you what I do. Blah, 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 blah. I was meditating. They showed me a human being in front of me. You know how like we see the graphic of like the human beings turning around, like the, you know, human body. And then they showed me like each of the chakras like light up, but from the top down, and they showed me the light source coming in and fully activating the being through the whole body. That's what Rapid Ascension Awakening is. There's a course on each chakra that we go through, right? And that is like, that's my purpose. Like, you know what I mean? Like, well, I know there's more, but you know, that's a big thing from the very start, right? And now all of this is coming together. So Shannon says, I've been seeing a blue sparkle for years, and after watching those videos you posted, I'm wondering if the blue sparkle was about holding the blue light. No one has been able to explain the blue sparkle to me yet. Do you know, when I'm laying outside and I'm looking up at, you know, just, you know, kind of going into a meditative trance, I do it at the beach, or I used to do it at the beach all the time. Like, that's what I would see. And it's not like I'm like, okay, let's meditate and get into a deep state. So I'm looking at the sky and I can see it. Like blue sparkles. Now, people say that's Archangel Michael. How would we ever know this stuff? That's why I'm like, question everything, right? Always said that. People say it's connected to Archangel Michael, you know. And so let's go back onto this Archangel stuff, right? Because like I said, I was like, but I'm about to teach the polarities. I'm about to teach the extremes. So when I grabbed the book, right, this is a throat chakra consciousness, right? A big chunk of it. That in here is, we talk about the Luciferic influence and the Aramanic influence. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, the thing is, right, is that when we talk about polarities, there's a polarity of light and dark, right? On the full spectrum of the scale and the emotions and all that jazz, like there is the light and there is the dark, okay? So we've got light, dark. Did you know my number plates are light, dark? No joke. You guys probably seen it on my story, right? So there's like this spectrum of light and dark. Oh, I know it's back to front for you guys, right? It's light and dark spectrum. Maybe I can quickly change it. Let's see. Embodying source energy. All right, I have a feeling my battery's going to tell me it's going to go flat soon. Yay, I did it. Okay. Okay. All right, sweet. So the light dark, okay? Now, Abraham Hicks talks about, you know, the spectrum of emotions, you know, and we've all seen, so then they talk about the vibrational scale. It's like this too, right? Now, there's probably a reason I did it like that to start with. So there's a vibrational scale, right, of light and dark. Now, with the light and the dark, like this is a high vibration, this is a low vibration, right? Now, when I always see light and dark, I see it like this. I see it on a horizontal vertical point. Don't ask me why, I just do, yeah? So with the light and the dark, right, it's like Abraham Hicks has channeled it, and like, you know, the vibrational, and you know, there's the other image which I put on the Monday meditation thing. There's the, oh, what's that called? The ascension, and it's the spiral, right? So it's the vortex of like, the cone-shaped vortex of the expansion. It's not called this. No way, I can't think of what the name is. Now, I'll share a video later today as well, and it's basically what Rapid Ascension Awakening is doing, right? We're integrating so this is like the other one, you know how there's a spiral, and so we're spiraling up of this expansion spiral as well. It's not what it's called, I can't think what it's called off the top of my head, okay? So there's all these different ways of measuring the light, the dark, all the things, right? Now, as I said, I personally have always seen it like this, but I know it's like this and I know it's like this, okay? Now, what's interesting is that all our feelings and emotions are measured on the vibrational scale, right? You're in a low vibration and you're upset and you're grieving or you're angry and it's, right? Everyone's seen it with Dr. Emoto's stuff, or in a high vibration, and that changes the crystalline structure of the water, which our body and blood is made up of 70% water or something. It's malleable. So the more we focus on the higher vibrations, the more we consciously choose to flood our body and brain and emotions with high vibrations, and talk, our self-talk and our mental capacity is like the biggest thing, guys, right? We wake up through our thoughts. So with this, right, when we look at the archangels, so, and again, I'll show a video later that goes in depth. I'm going to talk about this. So this is the Luciferic influence, and this is the Ahriman. Let me get the correct spelling here. Luciferic and Ahrimanic. So when we look at the light and the dark, this is the Luciferic influence. This is the Ahrimanic influence. Now this is like a big black hole. And this is like a big black, white, open hole in a way, right? So dark, if you want to call it yin, cold, expansion, hot, overtaking. Now, when we look at the polarities and the earth laws, this is one of the earth laws. This is what's kept us here. In between, flicking back and forth, back and exhausting, round and round and round and round and round and round and round, and we go. Right? Now, when we look at moving up the expansion spiral and into that, right, which is the reconfigure energetic codes, we go up that spiral, but we don't actually stay there. We come back to the neutral point. Now, when I always see this, like I said, I've always seen it this. I've never seen it like this. Just my personal intuition. I'm like, I always just view it like that. I don't even think about it, right? Now, that would make sense when we look at what comes in the middle. Like when we get to a point in the middle of the light and the dark, like, I don't know, like what is that? Tell me, guys. Like, I don't actually know. Well, I kind of do, but I don't, because we don't really know everything. Like, what happens when we come into the center of light and dark? Like, what would that be? What would that be? I'm just going to answer these questions while I'm waiting. See what you guys think about that. So Tammy says, what do you know of the silver violet flame? I've heard of the silver, oh yeah, the silver violet flame. The light that's been coming to me a lot lately is the platinum light. It's platinum. It's not silver, it's not blue, it's platinum. I couldn't describe it for such a long time, and then someone said platinum to me. I'm like, oh, it's platinum, that's what it is. Glittery light, that's how I describe it. I often see it in a silver, blue, or gold and silver. Yeah. Love my sword. I love my sword too, thank you. I've always wanted a sword, and now I've got one. Okay, so April says, I literally bought fine glitter to blow in the air to illustrate what it looks like to others who couldn't imagine. Oh my god, I love that. I love that so much. I always love glitter. Oh, anyway, there's so many glitter stories we talk about. Oh my goodness, this brought back so many memories. Okay, that's so awesome. I love that you do that. So Margarita says, when I get in a deep meditation state, I see a lot of purple, almost like I'm speeding through a dark tunnel with purple on the outside of it. Feels good and peaceful. Yeah, purple is a very high connection frequency as well. So Dalla says, that is balance, that is self, that is love. Yeah, so I don't actually know what it is. For me, what I call it is integration. I always have, right? Now, what's interesting, right, is we know an archangel, and we know, and I'm going to use the archangel example, but I'm sure we could apply this to any deity, to anyone, right? Because if we look at what's happened with Thoth now and what we know about the truth about all those Egyptian gods, for example, and maybe it's not all of them, maybe I'm putting them all in the same basket, but when we look at all of those Egyptians gods who have been seen as gods and depicted as gods over time are actually what they did on purpose to hide the truth from us and actually make all these gods that actually weren't, that actually threw us off. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like this, it's the big deception, right? So with this in mind, okay, the thing at, you know, the throat chakra, and this is like, I'm really excited to teach it. I have been for ages, and I'm like, okay, it's really freaking big too, okay? Now, as I said, let's use Archangel Metatron for an example, because the Metatronic grid stuff, I'm like, wow, this is deep, right? Now, remember that Archangel Metatron, oh my God, this is explaining so much. So there's a couple of, okay, there's a few live streams I've done. Oh my God, I'm covered in goosebumps. This is where I feel like, okay, for me, how do I know I'm connecting to true source? It feels right. I'm not confused. It is acute clarity. I get goosebumps. It makes me want to cry. It taps into that much truth resonance, just like me watching these videos and putting so many pieces puzzled together. Now, Archangel Metatron, like I said, came through in December 2019, and he came through when I was driving on the highway, and I was itching to get home and see what it was, okay? So in this book, it goes through each of the archangels of their Luciferic extreme and their Ahrimanic extreme, okay? And it goes into detail of them when they're flicked on either side. Now, this kind of makes sense when we look at the earth being flicked off. Oh, it's upside down. That's what it is. Everything's back to front because we've been pulled down, not into the equation balance or whatever. That's what it feels like. That doesn't feel like a spiral up to me. That feels like an equation balance. That's what just came to mind. This makes sense when we look at this as being tipped off the proper axis. It's out of balance. It's off to one side in a way, right? So when we look at Archangel Metatron, the archetype of Metatron is innocence, for example, right? Let's look at Archangel Michael. Let's speak to these two because they're the main ones, okay? Archangel Michael, where is he? Azrael. Okay, let me find it. Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael was really strong for me in 2018, actually. I remember. Do you know what Archangel Michael is? So Archangel Michael's archetype is consciousness. The Ahrimanic extreme, okay, the Ahrimanic extreme of Archangel Michael is the judgment of the light. The Luciferic extreme of Archangel Michael is judgment of the darkness. It's like a mirror at each other, Right? Now, this is an important piece that I need to share with you right now. On those videos, this was the like, woof, everything just shifted into alignment. On those videos that I shared, I think it was another one that I watched. Yeah, the one they just put in the comments, I think this is from. So we're saying all this stuff, right? It's important I say this at this time. We'll come back to archangels in just a moment. I had to stop the video and consciously type it out. It's like going back and listening to it so many times because I was just like, whoa, there it is. So what the aliens or all the bad ETs or whatever have done, the reptilians, whatever they are, okay, all those lower vibrational beings, let's say, what they've done, this is what the exact words from the video, she said it creates a checkerboard system, right, on the earth that is multiple alien technology systems that reverse the energy currents on earth to split them into biowave frequencies which create extreme polarity in consciousness energies. The splitting is to create extreme densification. Guys, getting this? I'm going to read this again, okay? So what they've done, it creates a checkerboard system, right? So this is our Earth, okay? And you know how like Earth is supposed to have all these amazing like energy vortexes and all the beautiful places we love, like Stonehenge and the main civilization, like all this stuff or whatever, like these beautiful vortexes and whatever, but they've created all this shit on them, right? So creates a checkerboard system that is multiple alien technology systems that reverse the energy currents on Earth, they reverse them to split them into biowave frequencies. Isn't that interesting? Biowave and the wave stuff coming out, interesting. Which creates extreme polarity. Creates extreme polarity in consciousness energies. The splitting is to create extreme densification. Now, what happens in the densification? It's heavy, it's dark, it's cold, it's dense, it's light, it's high, it's warm, it's open, it's closed. Yeah? Huge, right? Huge. Do you guys get this? So, if what they have done is reverse the energy systems to pull us down, and they've created the reverse to split them into reverse the energy currents on Earth to split them into biowave frequencies, which creates extreme polarity in consciousness energy. The splitting creates extreme densification. How low? How many of us feel dense? How many of us feel heavy? How many of us like blah, 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 right? So when we look at this, for example, okay, and when we look at what I was sharing before around them coming from the Wesadak, right? I'm assuming like in a way, and they've knocked us over, or they've knocked, sorry, maybe it's on the other side, and they've knocked us off our proper one to come into the dense, like they've split us, right, in a way, yeah? It's tricky to describe. You guys with me, okay? Now, if, for example, the archangels come from Wesadak, for example, yeah, there's these aspects of them, right? The dark and the light. So, if the splitting is to create extreme densification, which means they can feed off us and keep us asleep and all that jazz, the answer then is in the reunification of the truth of who we are. So when we look at, for example, Archangel Michael, let's talk to this one. Archangel Michael, the archetype is consciousness. Oh, how interesting, right? The splitting is to create extreme densification. The reverse the energy of the currents on Earth to split them into biowave frequencies, which creates extreme polarity in consciousness energies. Archangel Michael, his archetype is consciousness. It is the Aramanic is the extreme of judging the light, and the Luciferic judges the dark. It's like our whole reality at the moment, right? So the shadow integration. So when we integrate the light and the dark, when we integrate the luciferic and the Ahrimanic, when we integrate the judging of the light and the judging of the dark, which is the solution to stopping it in our own consciousness, and what happens when we all do our inner work and we affect the out, right? The integration is transformation of consciousness. Darkness and light are just as important of each other in the evolution of human consciousness. Should say back to original home. Yeah? So it's kind of really interesting, right? So it says, I'm not sure whether I'm feeling called to read this bit or not. Oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna read this. Okay, you guys got your drink? Got your coffee? Okay. So Margarita says, I get chills and cry a lot. Lots of synchronicities. Yes, I like stargazing and noticing a ton of satellites. And oh, I know how many satellites are in the sky now. It's freaking insane. When I was down in Victoria, I saw 5 in a row. Like, just looked like a train of them. I was like, what is that? I've never seen that before. I've seen plenty of satellites, but not a train of them. I was just like, I don't know. All right, so I'm going to read the Archangel Michael one, okay, on consciousness. Because it feels important to what's going on. And by the way, I just need to say this bit first too. The other videos that I've shared about Archangel Metatron, the archetype is innocence. And the Ahrimanic, so the darkness is guilt, and the luciferic is guiltlessness. So like, don't even have a conscious awareness, don't feel guilty about the bad stuff I'm doing. If we look at innocence, if we look at Archangel Metatron as like an overseer of children, like, and especially the tapped in, dialed into a higher dimension children, right? And the luciferic guiltlessness, right? Let's talk to this. The luciferic guiltlessness is when they don't have any like remorse or anything about what they're doing. Like that's like what's going on the planet right now with all the underground stuff coming to the surface, isn't it? Right? That is the luciferic extreme. Whereas in the Ahrimanic extreme, they feel guilty. Now, what did I just say before about the dark beings that are starting to come to people like myself, for example, the draconian being? And I was like, well, why is he doing that? Why did he come and give me that? And he's not, doesn't hang around. Like I'd said a little while ago, you know, and he came through in June or whatever and gave the update of it. I'm like, I've been waiting for him, but just, he's not around. Like I've called him, doesn't come. Like, do you know what I mean? Whereas when we look at that, and we look at the Ahrimanic extreme, if they're pulled into the darkness, right? If a light being is pulled into the darkness, right, through the luciferic, right, it's like, I'm the powerful one and follow me and what I'm doing is right. It's like expansive. It's like, I'm no remorse, like Hitler and all that. You look at that, right? So they're pulled into the dark, right? The light being's pulled into the dark. Eventually they feel guilty. That's what the dark Ahrimanic stuff is. It's guilt, right? It's guilt extreme. So they feel guilty, and so now they're coming out to help people like myself, like for that example, right? I'm like, well, this makes total sense, yeah? The shadow integration of Archangel Metatron, by the way, is the ability to embrace the wisdom in innocence. Now, when we look at that on a scale of what I was just saying before, I'm like, well, why did they do this in the start? Because they don't feel that they can connect to source. They can't confront themselves enough. They don't want to look at themselves like this. So they're pulling from everyone else because they don't want to connect directly to source, because that means they have to see themselves, right? And so the ability to embrace the wisdom and innocence, if God is pure innocence, source, whatever, is that pure innocence, like love, like they're not ready to see that in a way. Well, I'm making them, but you know what I mean, right? Just got chills, yeah. So for some reason, I'm feeling called to read the Archangel Michael one, maybe because I've read Archangel Metatron on the other ones. Let's see what comes through about this. Okay. All right. So the luciferic influences on consciousness, right? So we're talking about Archangel Michael on the Lucifer side is the extreme of like, I'm the one, you know, if we look at Lucifer, sorry, I'm jumping back to what the woman on the videos had said around like, who is the true Lucifer? And she said Thoth. It's like, well, look what he created. Look what he basically penned in a way, and like led all of us into the fake light and gods ultimately. Yeah, that's what Lucifer does. Yeah. So the luciferic influences on consciousness. Everybody knows Archangel Michael. It's interesting, right? Experiencing our highest vibration of light without owning our human reality can lead to severe judgment of the darkness. This is where we can literally feel high and get so high that we lose our ground. We can lose touch with reality. This can lead to mania or psychosis. Interesting. This type of high leads to judgment of that which is not pure. Now, you know how I said before around, you know, when it was like, I said, like, so this type of high judgment leads to that which is not pure. You know how I said, like, my purpose is to change the bad reputation that psychics have? And you know, at the start of this live stream, I was getting all fired up because it was in that sense where I was like, it's people like Toth, for example, in that realm have made us intuitive angels, for example, being the bad ones and made society turn against us, having the bad rep when actually it's them. It's like, whoa, right? This type of high leads to judgment of that which is not pure. We may turn into believers of rejection of the darkness. They're in the Luciferic extreme. They do that, right? I'm royalty. Stay away from me. Let's put up all the gates. Blah, 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 blah. We believe people deserve hell. How interesting. I've got religions. You're bad. If you don't conform and do this, you're going to go to hell. This can be taken to the extremes. Those who do not conform, oh, that's what it says. Those who do not conform to our ideas of purity are judged and damned or killed. It doesn't say killed, but I added that. This type of thinking can rationalize murder. Oh, how interesting. We may also, it just makes me want to cry. We may also see this energy of puritanical behavior in patients in mental health wards who are convinced they are so pure they are the Virgin Mary or Son of God. They may believe they need to save everyone who is impure. How interesting. It's like cult places, satanic cult places. It's like very similar kind of ideologies, isn't it? This denial of the darkness leads to an exaggeration of the light side in which we lose touch with our human self. Oh, how interesting. We've been hybridized and we've been infiltrated so far that we've lost who we are. We lose touch with it because we judge it. We also see this with some religions that create such a huge high for their fellowship during a worship. They might be speaking truth and this lifts up their congregation. Their congregation may have an intuition and inner knowing that they are hearing universal truths. However, there is a danger that once the congregation is open, they are more vulnerable to judgment and coercion. They may be fed ideas that they or others need to be purified in order to redeem themselves. This can cause spiritual abuse and psychological damage to followers of these religions because of the guilt and shame that it produces. Interesting, right? Sure thing, Shannon. Of both Shannons. And Shannon, different Shannon says, I was raised that way. Caused me to be extremely judgmental of myself. Exactly. God doesn't judge. Exactly. Right? And then we discover the truth. And all of this is a journey to awakening. So the aromatic influences on consciousness. So when we go into the dark side, yeah, this is where we experience denial of our lightest part. It's not the dark that we fear, it's the light. Interesting. We don't see any light within ourselves or others. We lose connection with any light and can't see it. We see the darkness in others and forget about their light. It's like this negative lens of the whole world, right? We can get lost in the darkness and feel that that is all there is. We might be quite comfortable with the darkness. Hello. We might even believe in light but don't feel comfortable stepping into it or facing it. We would prefer to just sit in the darkness. Who can resonate with this? I know that I can. We become one with the darkness. We may not recognize abuse as inappropriate. Oh, hello. Hello. Explains a lot of what's happening on the planet right now, right? People get pulled in, the beings, and then all of a sudden the guilt is too much and they start to like feel guilty, and so then they're helping the light, but they have to stay here because we don't recognize that abuse is inappropriate. We stay in inappropriate relationships and situations that are unhealthy. Our judgment is not of the darkness in others, but the light in others and ourselves. So when we get agitated that somebody's succeeding, or we get agitated that they've got a beautiful, healthy, loving relationship, right? We don't have confidence in our ability to be in the light. We find ways to shut out the light in ourselves and people through avoidance and sabotage. When I integrated Archangel Michael, that's when my life changed. And that was the first time I started shifting in my business, and I made 25K in 6 weeks. Like, this was when I integrated Archangel Michael back in 2018, the end of 2018. This is what happened because I wasn't sabotaging. I wasn't sitting in the darkness anymore. So interesting, right? This can lead to feelings of hopelessness and depression because our inner darkness is projected as a vision of the world. We may not see the light in the world. We may focus on the negative things happening rather than the impact these experiences are having on people's consciousness, right? So we focus on the negative. It's like, why are they doing that? They shouldn't be doing that, rather than the impact these experiences are having on people's consciousness, right? How do they feel? We don't fucking care. It's like we lose focus on the bigger picture of everything being in perfect order to assist in humanity's evolution of consciousness. That's where we can step back and let go of control and still do what we need to do to support humanity. Right? This is called Transforming Darkness to Light by Michelle Lightworker. This is level 3 of the Lightwork Practitioner's training that I completed in 2005. Yeah. So the shadow integration. So when we integrate Archangel Michael, light and dark, when we realize that we have indeed judged the light within ourselves, because we realize that this is within us. We realize that it has stopped us from embracing all the elements of our shadow. Each part of us has a light and a dark side. This is the key to unlocking the gift in every part of our shadow. When we have mastered this, we become transformers of our vibration. We are able to overcome anything negative and turn it into a positive. We become co-creators with Source. We become connected to the all in the biggest way possible. Our consciousness is transformed and we lose our fear of others and ourselves. And this is where that power pole fully ignites up, because we are directly connected to Source. We become co-creators with Source. We learn how to master and transform our vibration. This is how we move up the evolutionary scale into the expansion. Yeah, we transform it. We transform anything in our vibration. This is the transformation. Archangel Raziel that I showed you before on my wall. This is the Archangel transformation. He's in here too. Anyway, we're talking about Archangel Michael. Our consciousness is transformed when we lose our fear of others and ourselves. Hello, empowered world who stands up to authority, has no fear of them, stands up for our truth and what's important to us, and enough of this lockdown bullshit. Can't sleep. You're locking us down and you're waking us up. Do you realize? We are no longer mystified or confused by our minds. We become observers of our thoughts, and therein lays a freedom that is beyond explanation. Remember how I said, when I see the light and the dark and the vibrational scale, I see it horizontally. I don't see it vertically. It's that, right? So yes, there's this, you know, vibrational scale, and into the expansion we spiral up, and like I get all that, I do. But when we look at an expansion spiral, it could be going that, like, who really knows, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like, and I think I've shared this before on something, that when I always see it, I'm always here, like, viewing it, you know, like it's not like, and it's not like I'm in it and I see it, the light, I see the dark. It's like I'm here and I'm viewing it all going on, you know, and that's where, like, I don't know, maybe big kind of my gift comes in. Maybe other people see it like that too. I don't know, right? So when we look at this, we are no longer mystified or confused by our minds, because we're not in it. We're not getting pulled and sucked back and forth and blah, up and down. Like, we're viewing it with a conscious awareness of what's going on and able to transform any piece of that scale. Integrate the light and the dark. Because, you know, if we're just in the light, can turn into Luciferic and what's happening on the world. I am the power source. Come to me. So I think I'm big on, like, I don't heal you. Here's the tools. Do it yourself, because you got your own source to heal you, right? That's what I do. I teach you how to connect to source and stay connected and heal all the shit and transform the stuff that comes up, because we live in this reality. It comes up. It's a thing, right? It's how fast do we catch it and transform it. It has to be experienced to be understood. We have a knowing that we are all our parts, and yet we are not attached to any of them, which is what I just shared there, right? It's not a disconnection. It's not an avoidance. It's a deep observer space of all that is. This level of freedom is that which transmutes the human spirit. It spiritualizes our human parts, and in doing so, our vibration is very grounded in our human reality, and at the same time, it is making the most of our human existence. We are able to model this to others, and in doing so, this transformation is passed on. This is where the journey becomes beyond space and time. We are fully in the present, not rejecting any of our parts. We are home wherever we are. There is nowhere to go and nothing to do, right? Because in that, it hasn't finished, but in that, right, that's where we really connect to true source. Like, if you really feel into it, and you can, you know, when we're saying, well, how do I connect to true source? How do I connect to the angels? It's like, well, if 100% light, it is. Right? Now, some might question that and go, oh, but you're saying that the Luciferic is that. And it's like, yeah, when it's unbalanced, when it's in the extreme, when it's being taken over, and that big, say, for example, only with that aspect of consciousness, right, of just one, this is just one aspect of consciousness, and this is, there's 15 archangels, right, 16, whatever, right, maybe there's more. It's only these little tiny pieces of consciousness. Like, if we're made up of a huge plethora of rainbow of all different archetypes and all different things, like, we can integrate all of it, and we could keep going for eons. Why? Because we live in a limitless reality, and an expansion's live in limitless reality. Like, we've known that, but we've been trapped and recycled here. But when we can know that, and when we start tapping into, but what's on outside of Earth's laws, what I've been saying, but what's outside of this? What's outside of this? What is outside of this? When we can take our awareness and take our stuff and connect to what is outside of it, we're connecting beyond. And what are we also doing when we're doing that? We're pulling us as a collective back into where we originally came from, back into the proper crystalline space. Like, it's a thing, guys, but it's a choice to choose to do it. And that's kind of where we're at. It's like this free will bullshit or whatever. Anyway, free will's kind of good in a way. Everything is in perfect order and harmony. The next step is illuminated for us. We are in complete harmony with all that we come into contact with. We are no longer fighting ourselves or others. So when we really look at the journey back to our original home, perhaps, and the Archangel Michael, I don't know where the other ones came from, maybe they came from the same space, came from the Wesadak galaxy system or something, whatever it is, right? That name is just so familiar to me. I'm like, why is it so familiar, right? Maybe because the archangels, I don't know. But if we look at what happens when we integrate the two extremes of both the archangels, where does that take us? Where does that take us? It takes us back home. The next step is illuminated for us. We're in complete harmony with all that we come into contact with. We're no longer fighting ourselves and others. What is our current universe, and what is it originally started? Like, it started all the wars. We're no longer fighting ourselves or others when we integrate it. Therein lies the answer. And we know this. We all know deep within ourselves, when we are feeling at peace within ourselves and in integrity and in alignment. That's why the first divine step to awakening your life purpose, also known as being in alignment with your higher self in connection to source. we all know that the integration, and when we feel at peace within ourselves, we don't have a desire to fight with other people, do we? We don't. We're like, everything's good. Like, it's a thing, right? Everything serves a purpose, and there is a point to everything. We are awake and at peace. Our mind is enlightened. Coming into that deep sense of peace. We're no longer fighting anyone else. It means that we've stepped out of that lower vibration of that, maybe the 3D construct, I don't know. Because when we look at the 3D, the 5D, the 7D, and it goes up to 12D, like they've taken that piece out. They've taken the missing piece. And when we can reconnect that back through our crystalline journey, through, you know, and I've always said for so long, you know, like, you know, there's 7 chakras, and I read somewhere last night on that site too as well, like, you know, there's 12 planets in our solar system or something, not 7. And I'm like, oh, that's so significant. Like, because they changed all that too, right? Like, they've hidden the others from us. There's 7 chakras that we've spoken about for so long. And for how long have I always said, I'm like, 7 is an odd number. 7 is the old system. That's why I teach 8 with the ears. It's a 8 is a balanced number. 7 is not. Like, all those things, right? And there's 12, there's more. So in Rapid Ascension Awakening, we don't just do 8, right? We're doing a 9-week journey shortly. That's the integration, is the 9th week. But then there's 3 more, right? And in Rapid Ascension Awakening, there is 12. So let me check that I've covered everything. Have you guys got questions? I know I was going on for long, right? But this is like huge. All right, so let's have a look. All right, so the thing that's jumping out at me too, so this is taken from what I read on, from listening to those videos. They said they put on a false front. So these, like, I'll just call them these people, put on a false front from the mid-2000s. And this is what really threw me, and I've been processing so much because I'm like, oh, I had my spiritual awakening in 2005. It says a false front in the mid-2000s was to direct artificial intelligence data streams from fake Archangel Michael to assorted channelers in the New Age movement and blast these transmissions high volume on the internet. And I'm like, that's exactly like the mid-2000s. I'm like, it's when I had my spiritual awakening. I'm like, okay, so what do I do with this? And I've like been through this big process, and I'm like, well, ultimately what I feel is that if we integrate the extremes of polarity of consciousness, which is what they've created through their AI technology, right? And they've reversed the energy, okay? So they've reversed it. So what is that? Oh, so like we're like the spiritual world, the New Age world, like we come from the base chakra up, and I'm like, nah, man, we come down. Bring that higher consciousness into our body, not freaking density upwards, right? And they've created the reverse to split the biowave frequency into extreme polarity. It creates extreme polarity in consciousness. The splitting is to create extreme densification. Like, it just, I'm like, this makes total sense. So the solution is to integrate the extremes of the polarity, right? Which creates a higher vibration, because if the splitting of it, the extreme polarity and the splitting of it creates a densification, well, when we integrate the polarities, it creates a higher vibration. It brings us back to wholeness. It brings it back to unification. So huge, right? So Margarita's asked a good question. She says, like, if I start working with my chakras, where should I start? At the crown? And I say, start where it feels right for you. Where I teach, yes, is coming from the crown down, but I say start with what feels good for you. Yeah, it could be the crown, it could be the base up, it could be coming in through the heart and then going both ways. It could be third eye. Like, start where it feels good for you. Yeah. Yes, I teach from the crown down, but like I say, start with what feels good for you. All right, computer's gone to sleep. All right. So Kelly says, has anyone heard or read The Law of One? I bought the set, but I haven't read it yet. When I was looking up things from the 3 videos Hannah gave links for, it led to The Law of One. Ah, that's interesting. You're already being shown the information, Kelly. How interesting. I haven't read it. No, I haven't. But my feeling is exactly what it's returning to oneness. It's returning to wholeness. It's returning to all of that, right? Yeah. All right. So let's have a look here. Okay. All right. So another thing that they said on there as well, like the golden grid, the golden eagle grid, which is interesting. I've heard stuff about it. Again, I'm not really got into it much. Was outfitted to be a psychotronic weapon used to transmit disinformation or tiny truth laced with poisonous lies to throw them off to damage discernment in indigos and starseeds. So interesting. In an attempt to derail their continued awakening and snatch them for the harvesting of their energy. It's fucking insane, right? And this is why I always say I'm 100% light. And that's why I always say, do not leave your body when you are channeling information. Because you know how some people, they channel and they're like, you know, they're like, oh, eyes are all back and they're like not conscious, or hypnotherapy and shit. I would never fucking do that. I'm like, I'm staying conscious. Thank you very much. Yeah, no. You want me to channel something? Yeah, I'm staying completely in my body. Thanks. This is me. Yeah. Okay. I'll consciously channel this information. No worries. Right. And if it doesn't feel right, no, it's like, I'll say they don't even come near me now. They do, right? Because it happens. Yeah. But at the same time, there's like such a discernment factor and a bullshit factor and a truth radar and all of that. It's like really being clear, right? And this is what I mean. Like even the site where I've discovered all this information, it's not the first place I've heard it. There's something still, I'm just like, yeah, but what's with the freaking secret shit? You know, like there's still bits that I'm a little bit like, yeah, that truth, no, like, you know, and I'm really using that, you know, and it's the same thing when I teach stuff, guys. You need to have your own truth factor on with it as well, right? Okay, what else do I need to talk about here? Okay, so the reversal. So you know how I talk about that woman had said, creates a checkerboard system that has multiple alien technology systems that reverse the energy currents on Earth, that split them into biowave frequencies, blah, blah, blah. This reversal keeps human DNA unplugged. So if we really look at coming down in through our chakras, which, you know, I was questioning it because I'm like, but that's coming down into the density. It's like, well, no, actually we're taking the light consciousness frequency into the density to transform it, right? Is my feeling on that. So the reversal keeps human DNA unplugged. So if we just flick everything up, well, we're going to spiral back up, aren't we? Okay. And that person even on the video even used the words like gaslight to confuse and derail. And I'm like, such narcissistic energy. I'm like, let's all integrate the narcissist and see what happens. Like, oof, hello world shift. Right? This is what I've always said for so long, you know, I'm like, I walk with the darkness, I see the darkness and I transform it as I walk in it. Exactly. Because of that. You can't touch me. You can try, but I will transform you before you do. Why? Because we are that powerful. And we need to have the confidence, the courage, and the trust within ourselves and our connection to source for that. That's all it takes. Imagine if everyone was doing that. All the original humans were doing that. And by the way, when we do that, you know how they say they've manipulated and hybridized us and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, so we're awakening the true human now. So in DNA, and this is what I posted the other day, or last week or the other week, when I said, what did I share there? Oh my goodness, my computer has decided to not play. It's frozen because I didn't touch it for so long. Okay. It was sad that I left it. My voice is fully going. I've been talking, how long have I been going? Oh, I've been going for 2 hours. All right. No wonder I'm starting to fade. Obviously, the messages have come through that I needed to share. Okay, so I'm going to share this one because it was so strong about the water and the connection. And as we wake up and in our blood, in our human blood and all this sort of jazz, like this is who we are. Like, when we wake up and we're like activating our own human DNA and reconnecting the 12 strands and all of that, which is what came through in one of the ceremonies recently, says, you burnt us, this is what I wrote, you burnt us at the stake, but we had already infiltrated your bloodline. A message to the hierarchy. You took our lands, you took our women and children, you slaughtered our species, but what you didn't do is wipe us out. We had already infiltrated your bloodline. Thy kingdom come and thy kingdom go. Every hierarchy falls eventually. Every kingdom lands on its knees. You may have burnt us at the stake and continued to kill those whistleblowers, but we had already infiltrated your bloodline. The Fae are in the bloodlines of the masses, and we are awakening. The ancient blooded healers have been here since the dawn of time, and you came here and corrupted the minds of the few that were swayed at your awe. This is before I discovered all this stuff. This was like, when did I write this? The 13th of August. So like, this came through really strong. Once one is awake, they cannot go back to sleep. They may for short periods of time, but something happens when somebody is woke. And that guilt eats them up, right? Their heart cannot go back to sleep. That is also known as their moral compass. And it is here that the heart is where the Fae lay. The Fae, the original bloodline that walked our ancient earth. We are the ancient blooded healers. We are the ones who can hear the trees, the gnomes talk, and the fairies on the wind. Nature is made up of us. We are nature. Nature is backing us and right there ready for the call of arms. We are the ancient blooded healers, the light workers, and we have already infiltrated your bloodline. That means that you may do what you do and you may ingest us, but we are in you, and that means that you are awakening and your internal uncomfortableness is growing. This is our power, and there is nothing you can do to the crystalline energetics that awaken the consciousness of humanity and the blood memory that is carried like water and deeply connected that knows no bounds of time. I just want to say there, right? Because the crystallines, there is nothing you can do to the crystalline energetics. Now, when we look at what has happened here, right? People may say, well, actually, Hannah, they've flicked us off and away from that original crystalline. And I'm like, no, they have put us to sleep from us. Like, yeah, that might have energetically happened as well, and we've shifted, but they also put us to sleep in that process. And what is happening is that we are awakening. And what happens when we wake, we connect back to the true grid line. That's what we now connect to, because we know all this isn't true. Doesn't feel good either. Right? And so when we connect to this original line back, that's what we're pulling, like in the wake up. And that's why they're trying to stop us from waking up. You can't do that. You cannot stop consciousness awakening no matter what external influences are tried and tested. You cannot stop consciousness awakening. You cannot stop consciousness awakening. You cannot stop consciousness awakening. We had already infiltrated your bloodline, and we are within you. There is no separation. And that is where we hold and unite in the unseen power that requires no brute or force. Which is, it's like Archangel Michael's message, which is probably why I was called to read it out. How interesting. You cannot stop consciousness awakening. What happens when we integrate consciousness? It literally just said here before, it said we are not fighting each other or ourselves or each other, right? It literally said that. Whatever I said before, I can't find it right this second, right? So onto it. We had already infiltrated your bloodline. We are within you. There is no separation, because they've came from the darkness to reach up to the light, because they know they can't live without the light. That means they are the light in there. And when we reawaken that light within them through our consciousness and holding the space of what we're connecting to, and we know the truth about them because they're not willing to face it, that's our power. That's our protection. That's our. So you get that? Can you guys feel it? Strong. Yeah? And that is where we hold and unite in the unseen power that requires no brute or force, but in the pure, unadulterated, grounded connection to the divine that you are. Awaken, awaken, awaken. It feels complete, guys. I'm covered in goosebumps. Tammy says, I just had a memory from childhood of me in an alternate universe. Boom. Awaken, awaken, awaken. Huge, guys. If you think that this can help somebody, please share it. You can share it in a private message. You can share it on YouTube. You can share it anywhere. Get this message out. This is really important, especially if people are feeling lost or they're waking up to another level or they're not sure what to do when they do wake up. This is really reconnecting us back into the truth, to that power source, to the crystalline grid activation, which just makes so much sense why it's all been streaming through. So I'm really looking forward to taking you guys through this over the coming weeks. I'll release details of that soon. If you've got any questions, please comment below or send me a private message. I love you guys heaps. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's long, but I'm sharing the messages, sharing the realizations so that we can all shift and awaken the consciousness of humanity together. I love you guys.